The good old Danish poet and author Hans Christian Andersen said it so well: to travel is to live. And after the corona pandemic, it feels even more true. On our last trip to the southern parts of Spain, we ran into this special edition here, the Tanqueray No. 10 Citrus Heart Edition, as it turned out, not so new limited edition. Let's check out the gin, the two gins that this version is based upon, and check out the distillery. Hi guys, and welcome to High on Gin. This is Tanqueray No. 10 Citrus Heart Edition, a limited edition that was released at some chosen airports around the world, just like Gin Mare did when they released their Capri edition. But releasing a special edition exclusively for the global travel retailers, meaning airports, in January, February 2020, Corona, to start with just in a few airports and then plan to roll it out all over the world, well, that could seem like trying to open a chain of ice cream shops in the Arctics. Although that might even be the case one day. But anyway, it has probably been a nightmare to the marketing people to try to gain some traction and awareness at that time via airports, which is probably why I and many of you haven't noticed the release of this one here before now. But who cares when it was released? We are getting back to more normal times, and that means that we are using airports more frequently again. And again, that means that this brilliant gin here becomes more available. So I thought we should have a look at this one here. But before we take a look at this gin here, let me take you through some of the info that I found about Tanqueray in general, because I found so many things that I want to tell you guys. Everybody knows the iconic green bottle, the fourth best-selling gin in the world with a sale of around 40 million liters of gin every year. 40 million liters. And if you're wondering which gin is the best-selling gin in the world, I'll link to my video up here so you can check it out. And if you haven't seen that episode up here, my guess is that you cannot guess which gin it is that is the best-selling gin in the world. And you cannot guess which country it is, in what country it is produced, sorry. But back to Tanqueray Gin. As I said, everybody knows this iconic gin. It is simply everywhere and it has been for generations. So why did it become so popular? Well, it all comes down to two things, I think. You have to make a great gin, and then you have to know how to sell it. The original distillery was founded in 1830 by Charles Tanqueray. The gin recipe for today's Tanqueray gin hasn't been changed ever since the very start of the distillery. And you know, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. And I guess that goes with this gin here. Although the gin sold relatively well by itself, you know, even exporting the gin to exotic locations as far away as Jamaica, Tanqueray signed a merger with Gordon's Gin in 1898. Gordon's Gin was founded in 1769, so 61 years earlier than Tanqueray. The new company was called Tanqueray Gordons & Co., and the joint forces made them the largest gin producer in the world at that time, ready to conquer the world going into the 20th century. 24 years later, in 1922, Tanqueray Gordons & Co. joined the Distillers Company, an organization that was formed by 6 Scotch whisky distilleries. And so it was for 64 more years. 64 very successful years, I might add. In 1986, the Distillers Company was acquired by Guinness Brewery, you know, this very famous beer. And in 1997, Guinness merged with Grand Metropolitan that had brands like Gilbey's Gin, Bailey's Irish Cream, Smirnoff, and many more, and then changed its name to Diageo. Diageo is now one of the largest spirits producers in the world with around 32 very well-known brands in their portfolio, Tanqueray being one of them. So yes, Tanqueray and Gordon's are owned by the same company, and they are actually made at the same distillery called Cameron Bridge Distillery, in case you didn't know that. And as a footnote, the wheat-neutral spirit on which Tanqueray gins are based is also produced at Cameron Bridge Distillery and is the same base spirit used to make Smirnoff vodka. Yes, being big really does have its advantages when it comes to optimizations and production. But let's focus more on the gin itself. The gin facility has 3 enormous pot stills, and one of them is known as number 4, or also known as Old Tom. And this is a 10,000 liter copper pot still. Today, number 4 is used exclusively to make Tanqueray, but since it has a little plaque on the front claiming that it has been in use since the reign of King George III, and he reigned between 1760 and 1820, it must have been brought in by Gordon's Gin. You know, Tanqueray didn't start until 1830, remember? And as an additional footnote, pot still number 4 was the only pot still that survived a devastating German air raid in 1941 that almost destroyed the distillery. The original Tanqueray gin has only 4 botanicals. Juniper from Tuscany that they dry out for 2 years to dry out the water and concentrate the flavors. Angelica from Saxony in Germany. Coriander seeds from Bulgaria, and licorice root powder. This is a very classic gin with this very crisp, dry style with a very dominant juniper flavor and these very fine citrus notes in it that comes when you use the right juniper berries and especially coriander seed. Tanqueray has always been a little bit, secretive, or at least a bit more hesitant when it comes to talking about botanicals and the production. Just look at their website, there's hardly any info there. But if you browse through the internet, you can see that they have noticed that we, the consumers, love to know more, so they actually do more here and there, more storytelling, which again makes it possible to piece everything together. So that's what I've been trying to do in this episode here. In 2000, Tanqueray released Tanqueray No. 10, a gin that is based on the original gin and its 4 botanicals, and then added an additional 4 botanicals. Fresh lime from Mexico, fresh oranges from Florida, chamomile flowers, and not least white grapefruits from South Africa. And in contrast to many other distilleries, Tanqueray uses fresh citrus fruit, and all of it cut into small pieces, and not just dried citrus peels as many other uses. So it becomes this more fresh and vibrant and citrusy gin if you compare it to the original Tanqueray gin. And when they produce this gin here, they use 2 pot stills in the process. The more noticeable citrus elements in the Tanqueray No. 10 gin is especially made on Tanqueray's pot still No. 10, hence the name Tanqueray No. 10. This pot still is also referred to as Tiny 10 and is a small 500-liter pot still. This small still was used as an experimental trial run still at the distillery before becoming the key still for Tanqueray No. 10 and for this special edition here. According to this chart that I found on a site called GiaggioBarAcademy.com, the 3 citrus elements, the lime, the oranges, and the grapefruits, are created in the Tiny 10 and then added to the Big Tom still. The 4 normal Tanqueray botanicals plus the fresh chamomile flowers are also added to Old Tom, and then the distillation process begins over the next 5.5 hours until they have a Tanqueray No. 10 at around 85–86% ABV. That is then watered down to the final 47.3% ABV. When it comes to the latest edition here, the Citrus Heart edition, there is absolutely no info about it on their website. Nothing about the gin or their servings or botanicals or the process. I could only find a press release on the internet stating that they have made a gin exclusively for the airports, and where the master distiller Terry Fraser said something about how he loves to experiment and how this gin here allowed him to discover whole new sides of this exceptional gin. Well, I couldn't agree more. There is nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with this gin here. On the contrary, it is so good. If you look at the bottle here, it is the same Art Deco inspired bottle as they use in Tanqueray No. 10, although the green color fades and becomes crystal clear here on the top. The bottom of the bottle is like the regular Tanqueray No. 10. It made to look like a citrus press to really underline the distinct citrus element in the gin. The red seal here is, of course, the approval seal of Thomas Tanqueray that is put here. It has been there since 1948 when they changed the original Tanqueray bottle. The band around the bottle here on the limited edition is copper colored instead of silver on the normal Tanqueray 10. And the stopper here is, of course, also copper colored. And if you look at it, it has this ever-present Tanqueray family's crest on top of it, or at least some of the crest. A pineapple that symbolizes wealth and hospitality, and then two crossed axes that symbolizes the Tanqueray family's involvement in the Third Crusade. The text on the bottle, well, only indicates that they have used even more grapefruit and rosemary in the gin. What I've been able to find on the internet is that the original Tanqueray No. 10 uses white grapefruits, as I said, but this one here also uses pink grapefruit, so white grapefruit and pink grapefruit. And pink grapefruit is said to be a bit more sweet in the taste. It is so inviting. It is really, really inviting. It has this juicy citrus note to it, very sweet scent to it, slightly herbaceous, and then it's defined and sharpened a bit by the alcohol burn, or slight alcohol burn in the nose. This is really, really inviting. Wow. Of course, it has more juniper notes in the taste, and you get these earthy notes, and then immediately it's followed by this very, very intense citrus notes and the alcohol that really elevates and sharpens it. I would almost suspect that they have used a bit of glycerin in the gin, as it has this very sweet taste and a way of hanging on my glass here, but I'm not really sure. Where you would normally get this very toned down citrus taste, and you wouldn't feel the high notes in the citrus feel if you use glycerin. That's not the case here. It has a very long aftertaste where the woody herbaceous rosemary comes to life, and together with the chamomile. This result here is very, very pleasant, and it will definitely pleases most gin lovers out there. You might think that the perfect tonic for this one would be a Fever Tree Mediterranean tonic, as it has rosemary in it, but it simply becomes too sweet and undefined. It becomes, I think, a mess. But this gin here, as this gin is a sweeter gin, it needs a bit more balance. So use an Indian tonic instead, and garnish it with a sprig of rosemary. That is to die for. And if you want to really use a slice of grapefruit, be careful that it doesn't become too bitter in the combination with the Indian tonic. The bitterness is primarily found in the pit, the white spongy stuff between the peel and the fruit. So maybe only use the fruit or a thin slice of grapefruit peel if you really want to garnish it with grapefruit. So guys, there you have it, a new Tanqueray gin that I really think that you should check out if you pass through an airport. The good thing is that Tanqueray's Marketing and Innovation Director, Anna McDonald, says in the press release I talked about earlier, and I quote her, "We know that gin lovers are always seeking out new and exciting liquids," and she says, "We love bringing new innovative ideas to our customers." And I can only see that as a promise that even Tanqueray will come out with new gins in the future. Sounds really good to me. I hope you liked this episode, although it became a very long episode. And do me a favor and hit that like button. And maybe even subscribe to my channel if you like what you saw. A like from you would really help me out there on the big internet. Until next time.